It was originally constructed in 1934. When it was constructed, it was the largest Art Deco, well, the largest terminal in the country, actually. It's obviously Art Deco in nature. It had several things that were kind of unique to airports at the time. It had a fully operating hospital, had a post office, had the Department of Commerce, the Department of Agriculture. It had a parachute room on the second floor for the National Guard. It had a fully operational commercial kitchen, which it still has, the beautiful cafe and the lovely walnut room. It also had something that was very unique. It had 4 private sleeping quarters, which was unheard of in terminals at the time. As a matter of fact, Amelia Earhart stayed here on her fateful journey around the world. Kept her airplane in the hangar next to us called the William Saylor Hangar now.
Talk about the impact, the economic impact. What does this airport mean to New Orleans and Louisiana today?
Well, it's truly one of the better regional airports in the South. It's got the runway lengths allow it to take some pretty large aircraft. When and if they get some flood protection, that's the only thing that's been a holdback to this airport being a real economic boom. I mean, there's been, for example, during the Super Bowl, I think there was over 850 planes here. This airport can really accommodate more commercial traffic than people think. And see, some of the international airports, the local international airport, Moisant or Louis Armstrong, can't accommodate that kind of corporate traffic because they have to handle the big jets. So this airport is unique in that nature, not to mention it's so close to downtown, you could literally land your aircraft and be in downtown CBD in 10 minutes. So when this airport was originally developed, it was built, the reason it was called the Shushan Airport at the time was because Abe Shushan, who was head of the Orleans Levee Board, he was appointed by the governor at the time, Huey Long. He came up with the idea that he would build the airport out on a landfill in the lake. And the reason for that was because Huey Long had a lot of enemies, political enemies in the city of New Orleans. He did not want the city of New Orleans to control this airport. So by building it outside of the levee system, it was on state ground, not on city ground. So just like the Huey P. Long Bridge, everybody in New Orleans could look at and nobody could use unless they drove into Jefferson Parish. This airport was for the people in New Orleans, but he didn't want the city to control it. So Abe Shushan literally built it on a landfill. That being the case, we're outside of the levee protection system. So what happens is when the lake rises, we quite often get overtopping on the outside of the levees. We also have an antiquated drainage structure. The drainage that was put into place in this airport was put in at the time the airport was built in 1934. So you can imagine there's a lot of old cast iron piping and all that's probably been damaged by roots, by whatever. I mean, over time that stuff erodes. So if we were able to get some levee protection, improved infrastructure drainage, I think this airport would probably see fuel sales double in 3 or 4 years.
We're here today to talk about the need for flood protection at the Lakefront Airport. Since Katrina, tens of millions of dollars have been invested in this airport, and the last piece in that grand renovation is the installation of flood protection to protect the investment that's been made by private enterprise and government.
Tell us about the critical nature of the flood protection, particularly after Katrina.
So the airport was flooded, as was the rest of the city. Since then, millions and millions of dollars have been reinvested, right? So we have multiple hangars. We have obviously the terminal here that's been renovated. Lots of investment by the federal government, local government, and private enterprise. And we want to make sure that we can do whatever we can to install flood control projects out here that protect that investment.
Tell us the nature of the flood protection that you're seeking from Washington.
So what we want to build is a system of flood walls higher than what we have here. It will be a combination of different heights depending on the location around the airport, along with temporary structures that will be put in place in the event of a storm.
Tell us about the critical nature of this airport and what it means to economic development of the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana.
So this airport, if you were here for the Super Bowl, for example, you would see in real terms just how important this airport is. It's a fully functional, operational general aviation facility day to day. And for events like that, tourism events, for example, we see a huge influx of private aircraft. And literally the airfield here was just loaded with planes for that event. And that's one example, right? So it's very important. The convention business here tells us that the airport serves a critical function. It also serves as an emergency evacuation point in the event of a storm.
When today's press conference is over, what would you like people to keep in mind?
Keep in mind that we're 10 years out from Katrina. A lot of money, private and government money has been invested in the airport to great success. So you look at the airport and you can see tangible evidence of accomplishment since the storm. We need to protect that investment, and that's what we're urging FEMA to help us with.
Tell me a little bit about your business and how it would be impacted by lack of flood protection.
Well, unfortunately, with lack of flood protection, if any kind of minor storm comes by and this place gets flooded out for a couple of weeks at a time, and we have some weddings booked or some big private events booked that we have to cancel or move or shut down for any length of time, would be just devastating to those families and to our business for sure.
Oh, our airport was built in 1934, and we are built on reclaimed land from Lake Pontchartrain. So we're subject to rising water as the tides rise in the lake. We're subject to bringing water in here and certainly susceptible to hurricane flooding.
What's the situation that you've seen since Hurricane Katrina with the hurricanes and the storms that have occurred so far?
Well, we had at Hurricane Isaac, we're the only thing in New Orleans that flooded. We had 3 feet of water at our airport in Isaac when the city was perfectly dry.
Well, it's critical considering all the special events and conventions and tourist attraction that the city of New Orleans is. The economic impact is unbelievable. Secondly, like for the Super Bowl and everything, this airport is the main airport for that event. So that would be catastrophic not to have an airport like this in play when the Super Bowl is held in New Orleans, because we handle probably 75% of all the aircraft that come in for that event.
What is the need for additional flood protection here at this airport?
Well, I've been here 21 years and I've been through 4 floods with 3 different companies that owned our facility. It's very financially damaging, the economic impact on our businesses after we get flooded out.
What is the current state of flood protection now, and where does it need to be?
Well, there really is no flood protection to speak of other than a few walls. There needs to be some type of plan put forth to protect the airport. I mean, the federal government just spent probably over $60 million renovating all the hangars and building new hangars and taking care of all the damage from Katrina. So it's ludicrous not to have flood protection for that large of amount of investment.
As the director of the Lakefront Airport, the requirements for flood protection is so incredibly important for the future of this airport that we are certainly hoping that FEMA does the right thing after having reviewed all the applications that we submitted and provides the funding for that very important project.
Tell us about the airport and how its operations are impacted in the event of any kind of flooding.
Well, the operations actually stop if we have flooding. And the flooding in both Katrina and Isaac and Sandy pretty well put this airport out of business for weeks and months when it was Katrina because the infrastructure gets damaged, the lighting, the FBOs, the fuel farms, all of those things are impacted by any flooding, and thus the operations actually ground to a halt. And this airport is, in fact, the major reliever for Louis Armstrong. We handle about 176 flights a day, and to try and transfer those flights, and this is either corporate or general aviation flights, over to Louis Armstrong, would most probably clog up their system as they're trying to manipulate all of the commercial flights that come in. So this airport is extremely important to the economics of the city of New Orleans, and without that flood wall, it's going to be greatly hampered. The development of this airport is stymied by the lack of it, because people don't want to move an operation here knowing that it could possibly flood. So we're working very diligently to make it happen.
I want to just take a moment and tell you some 10,000 people dedicated this building over 80 years ago. And in the 60s, the historic Art Deco was covered up somewhat, and then Katrina finished that off in 2005. So where are we 10 years after Katrina and 80 years after that original dedication? To understand the future of this airport, we have to look at what we've been given. And I have to give Huey Long and Abe Shushin a lot of credit. This was the most prestigious airport in the entire country. There's a lot of history here. Amelia Earhart slept right upstairs, where we have Ben Morris now as the director. So the ghost of Amelia is there, but he says it's good karma, so it doesn't seem to bother his progress. But we are about to start, we just started phase 1 of the restoration of these murals. The Board of Commissioners for the Levee District had commissioned Javier Gonzalez, and we have secured 7 of the original 8 murals. And the one missing is Bali, and we have a world-renowned conservator who's already started her due diligence on restoring these murals. So the Four Winds Fountain with Enrico Alvarez, we're in the process of getting that restored. So as we look back, we're looking at what we're doing for restoration. And Alton Davis, you want to come up and give them a little brief history of the restoration?
Hi, I'm Alton Davis. I'm the lead architect for Richard C. Lambert Consultants. We were the architects that were responsible for restoration of the terminal building that you're sitting in. I'll give you just a brief history about it. It's originally built in 1934. When it was built, it was the largest and most modern terminal building in the country. It had amenities that very few had, including a fully operational hospital, post office, Department of Commerce, Department of Agriculture. It had a National Guard area on the second floor for packing parachutes. It also had the Walnut Room, a fully operating commercial kitchen, the cafe, and one very unique thing is it had 4 private sleeping quarters, one of which Amelia Earhart stayed in when she was here years and years ago, kept her plane in the Williams-Taylor, which is now Flightline's hangar. Anyway, we spent about $20 million of FEMA money to restore the whole thing, because the entire building has 144 windows in it. After Katrina, we came in, it had been covered by a white pillbox by a firm called Simney and Merrick back in the 60s. And they had taken out all the windows except for 3. So you can imagine how dark and gloomy this was, and nobody could see half of these beautiful finishes that were hidden behind walls or behind false ceilings. So it took us literally almost 2.5 years to find the fabric that we had, and there was enough of it, thank God, for us to restore it. I can tell you personally, my mother used to dance in the Walnut Room when she was young, and my father flew out of here when he was a pilot. So it was a great honor to work on this, and Richard and Lambert and myself are very proud to have done the work.
I'd like to call up Ben Morris, who's our airport director. Where's Ben? He's going to tell you about where we are now.
See if I can do this without this thing sticking right on my nose, being vertically challenged. I've been here now 8 weeks. I now have a great staff supporting me. The airport is certainly the jewel of the city of New Orleans. I was initially involved with the Governor's Office of Homeland Security trying to get the flood walls built at the airport to protect it from future flooding. And we now have that 406 mitigation request into FEMA. They have been down here from Washington. All the local folks have been here. All of them have indicated that it's certainly a worthy project, and we're anxiously awaiting their decision as whether they're going to fund it or not. It comes to somewhere in the neighborhood of $65 million, and if that happens, then the future of this airport and the economic development associated with it becomes unlimited. We lost a lot of our tenants after Katrina, and hopefully we can start bringing them back, and our FBOs can start enjoying the fruits of the development that'll occur if we get that flood wall. We've been chasing a few gremlins out here since I took over, and slowly but surely we're getting away with them. We're now communicating on just about a weekly basis with our FBOs and our pilots and our T-hangar residents. So the airport's moving along. I'm very proud to be the new director, and hopefully we'll see great things in the future.
And I would like to take a moment to introduce some folks. You hear the word Non-Flood Protection Asset Management Authority, and people go, what is that? Well, in 2010, the state legislature created a non-paid board of folks who believed in the community and stepped forward and have put a lot of hours in. And I'd like to first acknowledge the folks who served with me on the airport committee. Mike Stack is here, Roy Arago, and I saw Anthony Richard. Where's Anthony? So those are my comrades that we really work hard with staff to move this along. I also have our Chief Operating Officer here from Non-Flood, Cornelia Allman. She probably slept here last night, you know, and I want to thank you very much. I also have some board members here of Non-Flood, Eugene Green, who chairs our commercial real estate, and he's been very supportive of our progress. I'd like to bring up now, Stewart Consultant has been working with us on the HMG grant, and I'd like Chris Fenner with Stewart to come up and tell you about the status of that application.
Good morning. My name is Chris Fenner with Stewart Consulting Group. We're the grant managers for the Levee District. As Mr. Morris alluded to, there's a pending application for hazard mitigation grant funding from FEMA, around $65 million, to provide a flood wall around the airport. It would consist of a permanent flood wall, except where it crosses the runways, where we would have a rapidly deployed system that could be installed immediately preceding a storm event. Again, that's a 100-year protection, and it would protect all of the buildings on the airport and much of the airfield itself. So it would make any future disasters much easier to recover from.
I'd also like to take a moment to mention folks in those early days who really believed in us and took a huge chance on us. One of those is Attorney Van Robichaud, who's here, thank you. He was in this building, building it out when no one was here, and he really took a chance, and I think he's grateful he did, and he's seeing the progress, and all the things we promised him are starting to come to be. We're getting ready to build out a conference center. U.S. Customs and Border Protection will be back in here before the end of the year. So we have a lot of good things happening. Someone else that took a huge chance on us is Messina's. And George, I'd like to call you up for a moment. George put a great investment in here to open the restaurant and catering, and I'd like you just to say hello.
I'm George Messina with Messina's Catering and Events. We've been in the catering business since 1961 out in Kenner. And when we took a ride out here to take a look at this beautiful renovation and stuff, I mean, we fell in love with it immediately and thought it would be a fantastic venue for weddings and parties and corporate events and that sort of thing. And our thoughts have come really twofold. It's better than we even thought. It's gone very well. The last quarter of this year, we're booked solidly. Going into next year, it's fantastic. And even the restaurant business, which I was a little skeptical of, I was a little nervous about when we opened it, and it started off really slow. We've built that up, where yesterday afternoon was one of our best Sundays we've had since we've been open. And here we are in the middle of August. So I'm really looking forward to the fall and that sort of thing. We've got a lot of families out here, a lot of little kids running around, groups of 18, 20, 22, family memories. People have gotten married here 50 years ago are coming back, things like that. So it's really cool. It's very exciting, and we look forward to a great future. And I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, George, for taking a chance on us. There are a lot of folks who came to the Walnut Room 50 years ago, and they just can't believe they get to come back. We have some other partners, some fixed-based operators, who the airport wouldn't work without them. We have Brayton Matthews here representing Flightline First, and we have Addie Fanguy with Landmark International. and we couldn't provide the services we provide without their commitment to this airport. And they are growing, and I want them to make as much money as they can because we make money when they make money. I would like to now bring up Joe Hassinger, who is president of the Southeast Flood Authority. Without flood protection, this could all come to a halt. So I'd like Joe to touch on that. Thank you.
Today, Lakefront Airport is a fully functioning general aviation facility. And in my view, the airport is a testament to the hard work and dedication of countless people in government and the private sector. Without contributions, substantial financial assistance from FEMA and FAA, we wouldn't be here today. The final piece in this grand renovation is funding and construction of flood protection. Without flood protection at the airport, we will not see continued investment and progress that we have seen. With flood protection, here's what happens. Insurance rates fall, investment skyrockets, right? And the progress that we've seen over the last 10 years will increase dramatically. We have overwhelming support, and I'd like to thank our congressional delegation and our state officials, overwhelming support from both for this project. We appreciate you and we thank you for your support.
I want to also thank our local and state officials. Governor Jindal's Office of Homeland Security and GOSEP has been amazing in helping us with our application. I want to brag just for a moment about our congressional folks. Congressman Richmond sends his best, and he sent a really good letter of support for our project to FEMA, as well as we have a lot to brag about because our delegation, Congressman and Majority Whip Steve Scalise, Senator David Vitter, former Senator Mary Landrieu, Congressman Cassidy, Congressman Garrett Graves, they all have come to work with us on this project, so we're very hopeful that this will happen. And it's the last and final piece that won't be the end for the airport, it will be the real beginning.
If people have questions, like more information, what should they do?
See our website, slfpae.com.